going live a little earlier than usual. This stream is brought to you by LIVE Products. All praise be to the Most High God. The Most High God comes first. If you like what you will see in this stream, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, or donate via PayPal. The link is in the description. LIVE. Live now. We're live now. We have a line of drinks. We have Morbi's grapefruit, sour fruit punch, orange, and lime. And we also have a line of cleaning products. We have dishwashing liquid, fabric softener, liquid detergent, and we have disinfectant or all-purpose cleaner. All-purpose cleaner really smells really well. It's really nice for your house. And of course, it can clean disinfects different surfaces. LIVE, live now. We're live now. I want to talk to you guys about the Snyderverse. This is the cover picture. You see the headless child writing "Peace, please," and various agencies and various people, even the children of Palestine, have pleaded to the international community concerning their case. The fact that Israel's not going after Hamas as much as they're going after the Palestinian people, destroying their institutions that sustain them. From their universities, they destroyed, to their health centers, to their educational schools, to their institutions such as their banks, their shops, their businesses, their homes. And now they're going after their food. So the food that is being supplied to them, they are just recently there today. They killed 6 assistant healthcare workers in the health kitchen. It's an American agency. And by targeting them, so they're targeting the people that feed them. They're also targeting their food by putting sand in their food. So that the supplies that go into Israel are now having such sand in them. Their medication still is not going there where it should. And they continue to bomb them. Okay, as we are speaking, they're probably bringing in strikes on them again in the refugee camps and so on. So this is what's going on. And we have a lot of children in Palestine. A lot of children have been injured, hurt, and killed, but we still have, Palestine is mostly children, so it's really crazy what's going on down there. So this is the plea to the international community, but I'm going to start off first and foremost with the Snyderverse. And as you can see from the title, it talks about continuity. I want to talk about the depth of the continuity, not just the continuity, but the depth of it. So, as we all know, Zack Snyder, in his trademark way with his sequels, the sequel begins where the last movie has left off. Here I cite one example, and what's interesting is you see it from a different perspective. So the interesting thing about Zack Snyder doing sort of a pickup from the last movie is he's always showing it from another perspective. And the depth of that is what makes Zack Snyder's film so great. His films tell a continuous story, but he allows you to see it from the lens of different individuals in his sequel. So, for example, in Man of Steel, the ending of Man of Steel, of course, was the onslaught, the attempted invasion by the Kryptonian army, led by General Zod, which failed. And so it picks up there. And we see it in the sequel from Bruce Wayne's perspective, from a human perspective. So the first time we saw it from a superhuman or Kryptonian perspective, where Superman was taking on, from Superman's eyes actually, from Clark Kent's eyes, taking on General Zod, or properly said, I should say his real name is Kal-El. So from Kal-El's eyes, you were seeing General Zod attack humanity. We also saw it from other perspectives. We saw it from Louis Lane's perspective as well, when we were looking at the American military, the National Guard, trying to defend against this possible invasion. Now, here, this particular incident is when General Zod is squaring off against Superman, and he just is getting used to heat vision. So he didn't realize he had heat vision, and he suddenly got it, and it was quite intense. It cut the building in half and caused it to collapse. And we see that from Bruce Wayne's perspective here. And we also see from General Zod's perspective here. We're actually watching at them simultaneously. This is General Zod in Man of Steel. So this is from a God's perspective, let's say, a person with godlike powers at least. And then we see from the human perspective. It's quite terrifying either way. And what is the significance? What is the depth of seeing something from a different perspective? Okay, so let me give you the ramifications of this and how this translates into what we're seeing in the world today before our very eyes. The gods can be linked to Zack Snyder's movie Twilight of the Gods. The gods are the people with power, the people who we've given power one way or the other, whether it's through transactional business or whether it's through electing them to power, or whether it's through trusting and abiding by the creeds or laws that they have given us to abide by. They are the gods. In the scriptures, it says, "Ye are gods," it's in the Psalms, "but ye shall die as men, because you behaved corrupt amongst the people." So there are gods among us. And Twilight the Gods is very interesting. It is saying that we're coming to the end of a certain period or a particular empire or a particular rulership. We've had various empires before this. We've had many empires, but let's just start from the Babylonian. We've had the Israeli Empire, which was with King David. We've had the Babylonian Empire, which was with Nebuchadnezzar. I'm talking biblically, that is. We've had the Greco Empire, the Grecian Empire. First, we had the Persian Empire, which was with Artaxerxes and all those guys, Xerxes and they. And then you had the Grecian Empire, which came and overthrew the Persian Empire with folks, such as I can't remember the Greek rulers right now, but it's coming to me. And then we had the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire, we had many, many Caesars under the Roman Empire, and then that came and fell. And after the Roman Empire, now, mind you, we speak about these empires, but we also had a great empire with China. We had, different dynasties in China. We had the Ming Dynasty and so many other dynasties. We also had the Egyptian rule ways back with the great pharaohs and stuff like that. So there's all of that I didn't talk about. But after the Roman Empire fell, and it fell under a Caesar, Julius Caesar, I believe it was. But after the Roman Empire fell, next came up other empires. We had, some Eastern empires, and then we started to have the emergence. We had the Ottoman Empire, we had the Russian Empire, and so on, right? And then today, in modern Western times, we have what is known as the Western Empire. Okay? The Western Empire is pretty much what runs the world. The face of the Western Empire is American imperialism. And that empire now is falling, it's collapsing, it's corroding. And so we are watching the fall of the Western Empire. And what will replace it, we will see. I'm not sure what kind of empire we will have, but there will be another empire that will rise. The Western Empire is a coalition of Western Europe and United States of America, right? Australia, and I believe New Zealand, I think, are also part of it. So that's the Western Empire. The Western empires consist of, they propose things like the United Nations and so on. So what you are looking at is the God. You have two gods that clashed with each other, right? You had Superman clashing against General Zod, who was looking to do a genocide throughout the world and purge the world. And the oligarchs in the Western Empire, they believe that the world is overpopulated. They believe that an ideal utopian world, the population, at least 6 million people need to be removed from the planet and from existence in order to have approximately a utopian society. And they think that the optimal population should be about 120,000 people, which is really ridiculous. But this is how they think. So General Zod's thinking of repopulating the world and bringing Krypton is not that far removed from these people who are far removed from the general populace. They think that the general populace is redundant, it's not necessary, etc. Which is ridiculous. I mean, it's genocidal. It's anti-life to a high degree. And then if you look at Bruce Wayne, who's at the human level, he is seeing this horrific action take place at the hands of General Zod. And this is how we are horrified when we see the mass amounts of death. And there's genocidal burning down of this building, his whole entire enterprise, killing many of his workers. This is how we look at it because we're attached to humanity. We're attached to people. We see people differently. People who have a lot of power and wealth and have a lot of say in the world's direction, they tend to see human beings more like pawns. They see them as expendable and useful only to a means to an end for them. Because they have so much power, they don't think about humanity. They don't think about giving back to humanity. They don't think about how can I elevate humanity. No, they think mostly about how they can exert their power to manipulate humanity to do their will, their bidding. So, and they see themselves as separate from everyone else. They're special. They're different, which is why they behave the way they do. Now, in this story, Superman is on that level as the elite people. He has a lot of power. He has a lot of influence. Okay. But he doesn't use it to destroy humanity as General Zod. Because remember, General Zod doesn't really have any affiliation or attachment to humanity because he's this elite who they've been circulating in these elite circles. They were born into elite circles. They were groomed in elite circles. They don't know about the common man. They don't relate to the common man. And even if they have mixed with the common man, talked with the common man, they still don't relate with them because they see things from a different lens, do not understand why the common man doesn't see things through this lens, won't work hard to do things a certain way. And so they say, no, these people are lost. They don't have no cause. They're just useless, right? Whereas Superman, having been raised and bred by the common man to have certain values, which we all share as common people, an attachment to each other, even if the common person doesn't always treat you well. In fact, the common person wants to annihilate you because you're different to them, right? They recognize the difference you have to them. You seem to have these abilities and these gifts, which make you a threat to them, they feel. Okay, so they want to annihilate you too. So the common man wants to annihilate you, some of them at least, and the elites want to eliminate you. And you have to pick who you want to really represent, And so this is the dilemma that Superman is in. This is the dilemma that Clark Kent, aka Kal-El, his real name is Kal-El. This is the dilemma that Kal-El is in. Now, what you have to understand is Kal-El picked a side. He said, I'm riding with humanity, which is crazy because when you think about it, most people ride with their own kind, right? This is why you have cultural groups and you have ethnic groups and so on. Once you find out where your origins come from, you usually ride with the people who look like you, behave like you, and you learn your history and culture from them, right? This is not what Kal-El did. Kal-El, his father explained to him what his purpose was. He was in a new environment. He had to accept it, incorporate into it, assimilate it somewhat. And his father was encouraging him to literally mix with it, to actually have relationships with human beings, to try to inspire them. And hopefully their direction wouldn't be the same that Krypton was. And so Kal-El had a different mission. He had a different purpose. It was, based on the intentions and hopes and dreams of his father, but nonetheless, he had a different mission. He had a different purpose. And it's sort of biblical what this is, because this is like Jesus when he came to earth. Again, has all the power, all the influence, all the authority, but he doesn't use it. Instead, he looks to help mankind become better. He literally identifies with mankind, and he has relationships with the common man. And not just the common man, some of the common man, the faulty common man. You know what I mean? The common man that is seen as the outcast, the common man that is seen as nothing in society. He literally went to the lowest of the low. He went to the bottom of the barrel. He went to the people that society don't pay attention to. He went to the poor and the needy. He didn't go to the rulers. He did go to the rulers, but he didn't spend time with the rulers. He was spending time more with the poor and the needy, the not so righteous, the seen as, outcasts, people who society wants to get rid of. The beggars, the prostitutes, the cheaters, the tax collector guys. The lepers, the outcast. He reached out to the outcast, the people who everybody had turned their backs on and shunned. But the people that the people praised and esteemed highly, he had more difficulty dealing with. And I'm saying this to speak to somebody who's a religious zealot, somebody who's filled with religiosity in your system. You got to remember where you came from. You came from the bottom of the barrel. Am I speaking to somebody this morning? I don't know who's tuning in to watch my videos. A lot of y'all too spiritual. I put it in quotations. Y'all so spiritual that you miss the reality of the situation. And I don't mean this in a bad way, because I'm speaking spiritually all the time. I'm never speaking not spiritually. But you got to understand something. Sometimes you're missing what is glaring in front of you. You're missing the humanity of the situation. That people need your help. They need you. But you're all up in this, these are the spiritual prophecies and this spiritual this and this spiritual that. All to rationalize a callous, heartless action that you want to take. You do not want to care. You do not want this to be your issue. You do not want this to be your problem. You do not want to speak out on this issue, which you know you should speak out on. You want to play it safe. So you're going to look for every single excuse you could find in the book to validate that. You're being disingenuous. You're not being truthful and honest with yourself. So anyway, keeping it moving. Yeah, we're talking about a godlike being opposed by another godlike being. Someone who is different. But he's chosen to go with humanity and to care about humanity and to protect humanity over joining with his own kind. Jesus could have bowed down to Satan and worshiped him and had all the kingdoms of the world. He chose instead to serve you and me, the common man, the least of least. He served the least of the least. I remember blind Bartimaeus. Man's blind. He's not only blind, he's a beggar. He's a beggar who's blind. He ain't got nothing. He got to beg. Jesus gave him something so precious. He gave him sight. Bartimaeus asked for it. Let me say it again. Bartimaeus asked to get sight. In other words, Bartimaeus was hiring Jesus to heal him. Bartimaeus had no money to give Jesus. He just put in his request. In fact,
He demanded it. And Jesus humbly provided it to him. The most powerful being in the universe, in the form of a man, served the least powerful in the universe. It's a paradox. It doesn't seem normal because human beings with great power tend to use it indiscriminately for their own benefit. But what makes a superhero different, what makes Jesus Christ the ultimate superhero different, in my opinion, as a Christian, is he did the absolute opposite, like Superman did. And these people didn't even like him. Not all of them, at least. Some did. But most wanted to get rid of him. Consider this. Jesus Christ, after doing all those good deeds, was crucified. They killed him for it. And some of those same people who were healed were there saying, crucify him. Do you dig it? Do you understand the price you pay for picking and choosing to love and care for humanity? Do you get it? There's a cost. There's a price to it. You may not make it to the end. You may be martyred. Love is a thing that's costly and yet free. It's hard and yet easy to do. The man was a god. Let me say it again. The man was a god. And yet he died like a man. Ye are gods, and yet he died as man. But the weirdest thing about this one was he hadn't done anything wrong. So why was he being killed as a man? For his leadership and rulership. And the reason was to carry all the atrocities committed by men who were put in positions of gods, and cleanse it so that if you repented of your wickedness, you could be as God and live forever. That's the gospel. Now, let's get into just a little bit here. Don't forget you can smash the like button. You can donate via PayPal if you feel so. I know I'm asking for money, but I don't care. That's me. Let's get to what we're talking about though. And this is why I like whether you believe it's a myth or whether you believe it's truth. It is true, but I can go into that some other day. The point is, these stories bear truth about humanity. And this is why I love Zack Snyder's take. There's depth in his takes. There's a reason why he's giving you different perspectives. Zack Snyder uses themes such as God and man, high and low. There's a reason he's doing that visually. And the wording, the minimalist wording that he uses has impact. I want to show you guys something else now. Something that you guys may not have seen. We see General Zod's leadership, and we see Superman's leadership in Man of Steel, right? Now, General Zod, he's doing what he believes is necessary and right and just for his people. He is sincere in what he is doing. He may be brutal, he may be horrific, but he is sincere in what he is doing. He truly believes that his people have one chance of survival, and that chance is on Earth. So he is moving out of necessity. He's put his people first. They are his priority. He lives to save and to take care of his people. This is his purpose for existence. He was engineered to do that. I want you to understand that you can have great reasons to carry out genocide. Let me say it again. Let me say it again. Because I want the point to hit home. For those of you listening today, I want you to hear me. And I want you to listen to me. General Zod had legitimate reasons to want to carry out that genocide. Does that make carrying out genocide right? No. You can have legitimate reasons to commit murder. Does that make committing murder right? No. Why? Because your reasons may be legitimate, but the way how you carry out what you want to do may not be. Let me say it again. Your reasons for doing what you do may be legitimate, but how you want to do what you do may be wrong. Let me explain. General Zod's entire mission was to ensure that his people and his race existed and remained existing, right? But how he went about doing that was absolutely immoral and wrong. Jarrell's way of ensuring that his people and his race continue to exist was morally correct and morally right. It was morally just. We were looking at General Zod's way, and we were looking at Jarrell's way. And Jarrell's way involved coexistence, not genocide. Adolf Hitler had various philosophies that were legitimate. He had some legitimate philosophies. But how he carried out these philosophies was wrong. Ethically, morally wrong. And this is the problem that we face. Being able to acknowledge that someone has legitimate reasons to do what they do, but separating that from the morality of the choice and decision to implement what they do. General Assad didn't have to commit genocide on the planet to bring back Krypton. He didn't. He didn't have to even create a new Krypton on Earth. He could have gone elsewhere once he got the codex. He could have. Because Jarrell and his wife had the technology to find out and discover a world where Kal-El could exist, and so could have Zod. Now, it's important to understand that this battle between the gods happened for a world, Let me say it again. This battle between the gods that happened, they were fighting over one world. This world was already populated. There were already native peoples there. And the gods were fighting over this populated world. One, to erase the people who were there and repopulate it with the new people, settler colonialism. And the other was resisting that at the expense of some lives so that the people who were there would be protected from that happening. What we have seen is two different perspectives. Now we're seeing the God's perspective. This is the gods versus the gods. But then when we look at it from a human perspective, the human couldn't distinguish one God from the other. Follow me now. You got to follow me now, because I'm going somewhere with this. So, from the human's perspective, because I can't distinguish one God from the other, I, being the common man, not understanding there's a war going on between the gods. You follow me? I can't distinguish one God from the other. I can't see who's on my side and who's not on my side. Follow me now. I give them a blank slate. I say they're all bad. Because I can't see what's happening behind closed doors. I can't see what's really going on. Who's really fighting for me and who's not? I label them all bad. I must annihilate them all. Right? Now, I may have legitimate reasons for wanting to annihilate all the gods. Isn't that what we say? We say, oh, we don't want the Western Empire, we don't want the Eastern Empire, we don't want none of them. We can manage our own thing. But some are fighting for you. They're fighting really hard for the common man to not be annihilated. But you don't know that. Some people are connected to their humanity, and some people are not. They're connected to their elites because they're linked to elites, to oligarchs. Their language is that. They want to see that thrive. That's how they think humanity will be furthered. And some are aligned with you and I. And they just want to see the average people. They like the simplicity of life. They like the beauty of just simple things. I've known of an oligarch that sold everything he owned. And he settled down in a little cottage in the countryside. And he'd go out to the market and he would just carry on daily mundane activities. But he would inhale the environment, the simplicity of the environment, the people, nature, because he realized that life was more about the common people. It was just about being a commoner. And he would trade all those other things just to be a commoner, a normal human being. He'd give all his money to charities and stuff to see people just carry on their daily lives in peace and in happiness. Simplicity of life. But there are many other oligarchs who don't see life like that. So here we see the battle of the gods over humanity. We're having such a battle now. There are some sincere people out there who have who are in positions of power, who genuinely want to do the right thing. And they're trying their best. They're fighting for us. They're fighting for us. And they fund sometimes protests and campaigns to better people. They fund certain things because they, by their heart, have ethics and morals, and they're connected to humanity. They have a heart. These people seem few and far between, but they are much more common than you think. And they are also oligarchs. But they're not looking to manipulate mankind. They're trying to liberate and free mankind. You don't hear about them much, but they're behind certain things. They fund certain things. Now, I say all of this to say that we're going to get to this point, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to get to this point where peace happens. And it happens in a beautiful way. Because we as humanity need to come together. We have a lot to offer each other. And when I say come together, it's not going to happen like the whole world's going to come. Well, the whole world's already come together via the internet. But what I mean is where we all see eye to eye and stuff. I don't expect that to happen. But I do expect that one day, well, for certainty, it will happen. But one day, humanity will begin to realize how much we can elevate one another, how much we can help one another, instead of how different we are from each other and how much we need to be exclusive. Yes, different cultural groups need their space to be with each other and to build each other up. I think of it like individuals. I am an introvert, for example. So I need alone time. So even if I mix with a lot of people, I need a time to recharge and be by myself. I think that balance between socialization and personal inspection or introspection is important. There's a balance. The problem is, in this society where we have a lot of worker types, where people are working for other people, sometimes that time is not there, it seems. Even if you pencil it in, there's no time for introspection, for personal self-development and improvement. Okay, so I just showed you, shout out to the person who just came through there. I want to show you something else. So let me see if I can get it there. Okay, so like I said, there's depth to Zack Snyder's sequels, different perspectives. And sometimes, as in Batman v Superman, we build up this hate to elites or to elite people or to oligarchs, and we paint everybody with the same brush. They're all bad. No, they're not all bad. They're not all bad. And some are fighting for you. Okay? Because they came from your beginnings. And they fight hard for you. This is the sequel that nobody's really talking a lot about. The transition from Batman v Superman to Zack Snyder's Justice League is a very informative transition. And it covers so many different things. And it has to do with sacrifice. But it's a very important thing. And so, of course, this is when Superman is dying. And here I show you the Batman v Superman version of it above. And below is the Zack Snyder Justice League version of it. See how they coincide quite nicely. And the thing about it is, we learn a lot more from the other perspectives, right? So we see Superman die, and we see his death through the eyes of Lois Lane. We see it through the eyes of Bruce Wayne. We see it through the eyes of Diana. We see it through the eyes of Lex Luthor. We see it through the eyes of the Amazons. We see it through the eyes of the Atlanteans. We see it through the eyes of Cyborg. Okay? So we get multiple perspectives. They all hear, well, we don't see it, but we hear it for
We hear it through the ears of Cyborg, and we see what happens also with the mother boxes. The mother boxes also hear and receive the death of Superman. So we get to see this humongous perspective on the death of a god or godlike being who actually was fighting once again General Zod, but now as in form of a monster and as a tool of Lex Luthor, who is looking to annihilate Superman because Lex Luthor wants to annihilate all gods, right? He's again, just like Bruce Wayne, he cannot discriminate between the gods that are friendly towards mankind, the gods who are looking to defend mankind, and the gods who he believes are there to destroy mankind. Okay? So he's engineered Zod into a type of doomsday creature. And that doomsday creature now is what takes down Superman as Superman takes down it. So the gods cancel each other out and there are no gods, which is what Lex Luthor says afterwards. He says, and now the god is dead, right? He said that, right? Because Lex Luthor is not for any god. He doesn't want any god to exist, right? He wants himself to be God. You know what I'm saying? He wants to be able to control God. All right. He must be he wants to have a God that he can control. Which if he's the God, then he can control himself. You know what I'm saying? So Lex Luthor is the example of Silicon Valley, the new oligarchs that come up on the scene, and we see the death of or twilight of the gods, the old gods, that is, which is very interesting because when you talk about Greek mythology, we have the old gods and then we have the new gods, right? So in a way, Lex kind of ushers out the old gods and he's kind of ushering in his new version of gods, right? Now, one of the gods he calls the devil, right, which was Doomsday, which is really Zod, mutated and metamorphosized into something else. So what's interesting here is that what is the real life implications of this? Well, to do that, we need to understand the perspectives that we saw. So the first thing we need to realize is he expanded on the death of Superman. So the death of Superman that we saw in BVS and him yelling out in his death, we thought it was just him crying out and then he died and then the whole world, mourned him. But it was more than that. And one of the hints was actually in BVS when we saw Lex Luthor looking at Steppenwolf, the image of Steppenwolf from the ship, as it was explaining to him about the different worlds and what the mother boxes were for. And then we hear Lex Luthor, when he's speaking to Batman at the end of the movie, he's explaining the consequence of that, because this god is dead, not only his death cries were heard beyond the stars, but someone is coming because the god is dead to destroy everything. He's hungry and he's coming, right? Now, that little hint led to the sequel, and now we understand why, right? So we learned from Wonder Woman's perspective, she also heard the sonic blast from Superman's cry, which is heard all around the world, right? As did Lois Lane, as did also Batman. And then we see the far-reaching consequences of this, right? We see that Cyborg hears the blast, and then we see the mother box activate and wake up. It wakes up for a minute, and then it goes back to sleep on receiving the information that Superman died, and Cyborg is aware of this, right? And then we see Lex Luthor. He hears the cry of Superman, and he nods his head, saying, he's dead now. And then he sees the ship activate and bring about Steppenwolf. And no, actually, he was receiving information from the Steppenwolf generated image from the ship showing him the mother boxes and what would happen. And then, so he's getting the confirmation when Superman dies, what happened. And he sees right there the mother box activate as Superman's cry is heard. And then we see it go across the seas. We see it go to Atlantis. And we see it activate the mother box there. And then we see it go across to the thymus and activate the mother box there as well. And of course, all the centured Amazons that were actually guarding the mother box, they activated themselves and they alert the queen. So basically, what we see is the death of a god triggering all these events and starting what would be an invasion later on. Why this is so important is because, again, the storytelling is continuous. Zack Snyder is giving you a narrative, and his narrative is on the battle of the gods, the battle of those who have influence and power in the world, the battle of empire, how this empire will start, how it will fall. So we're seeing the fall of one empire and the rise of another empire to replace it. Now, the empire that was replacing the death of Superman was an invasive empire, which again is supposed to lead to genocide. And we see that in Zack Snyder's Justice League. But it is arrested because the death of Superman causes the rise of new gods, or shall we say, the new age of heroes that resists the purging of the earth and the genocide, and therefore it halts, or at least it stalls the invasion that was supposed to happen on Earth. And that's interesting because we are literally living in a time where the common man can actually elevate to becoming gods in a collective way. And so this new age of heroes is happening as we speak, and we see people pushing back on the genocide in Palestine right now. And that's because we're attaining a sort of godlike status ourselves, men becoming gods, which is very interesting because we're taking back the power of these big oligarchs and these big institutions and these legal systems and laws. And we're even using the laws against the leadership of the very leadership of the land. And this transition, this new phase, what they say is the new world order, this new phase of movement where we've seen a number of movements in the world. We saw the Arab Springs. We saw multiple protests with the death of George Floyd. The whole world went into protest, and we saw the power of the people, the democracy of the people. Then we've seen Me Too movements. We've seen a number of different hashtag movements all over social media, including Restore the Snyderverse, which again, Release the Snyder Cut. All these movements moving big companies and big agencies to have to conform and actually bow down to them. Because of the age of social media and the age of the internet, there's more feedback, more voice by the people. And so we begin to see strategic ways. And now we are understanding that systematically we, the people, have more power than the most powerful people in the world because we're collective. And once we work in unison, once we work with one voice, there's nothing that can stop us from doing whatever. But of course, the Tower of Babel fell, so that's not going to really quite happen anymore. But for a certain degree, we'll be able to do certain things and move certain things. And right now, the global public, the global world, generally speaking, universally frowns upon the genocide going on in Palestine and the efforts by Israel. And Israel is going up against something way more powerful than it. The American empire and the Western empires are going up against something more powerful than it, because within their empires, the people within their empires, the majority of people within their empires disagree with what they are trying to do. And the people within their own empires are taking back the power that they give them and saying, we are not going to respect these laws. We're not going to respect this. We're not going to, because this is precedent. And if you don't listen to us, we'll overthrow you. We'll overthrow you. We'll sabotage the arms transfers. We'll sabotage this. We will civilly disobey you. And when people stand up to government, when they stand up to power like that, it's not just about marching anymore. Now they have, of course, these governments have their disruptive elements in terms of the police and in terms of the military. But if the police chooses to side with the people and say, fuck you, we're not going to protect these people need no protection, you need protection, and we're not going to protect you. And when the military turns around and says, we support the people, we don't support the government, that is when it's all over.
all the power that these people had, all the laws that they had to back them up to do their corruption, all of a sudden it falls flat. And they know this. This is why they try to sow discord amongst us. They try to sow confusion among us. They try to divide us so they can rule. And you have to be wise enough to understand this. Don't forget you can smash that like button. Smash that like button, people. So the world is pretty much united on Palestine. I'm going to talk a little bit about Palestine, but I'm going to talk a little bit about certain misunderstandings also, and educate you guys on certain misunderstandings about us as people and certain systems, because a lot of you guys don't even understand the systems. You know, especially if you grew up in the United States of America, you always hear he's a commie. Oh, I'm against communism. Okay. I'm against socialism too. He's a socialist. I'm against socialism. Okay. Let's talk about that. Let's talk a little bit about that. I'm gonna go on Twitter, and I'm gonna let Mr. Rathborn first of all school you on capitalism. Let's go with that.
Apartheid Clyde, Jeff Bezos, Bernard. Let me ask you something. Do you think that you have anything in common with a Larry Fink, Jamie Dimon, Steven Schwartzman, Bill Gates, Apartheid Clyde, Jeff Bezos, Bernard Arnault? Do you think you have anything to do with these people? You're not a capitalist, okay? You're a worker. If you work for a living, you are in the working class. Congratulations. Most people are. You are not a benefactor of capitalism. You are not a beneficiary of capitalism. So quit simping for your capitalist overlords. They do not care about you. They will literally melt you down into biomatter and use you as jet fuel for their next flight to space. They do not like you. They don't think about you. They are literally exploiting you. You are the reason that they are enjoying such a luxurious, lavish life. Think about that the next time you go to work, okay? Think about that the next time you earn a wage, which says you have a right to be here on this earth. You are not an institutional player. You have nothing to do with the captains of industry. You are not an institutional investor. You don't own any capital. Even if you own a home, that is not the means of production. Even if you own a car, that is not the means of production. If you were a worker and you defend capitalism, no. All that tells me, or anyone with any sense, is that you just fundamentally don't understand the political economy that you live in. You don't understand how the system is actually exploiting and undermining your very existence. Man,
You gotta love Rathburn. By the way, Rathbone, check him out. He's funny. He's a comedian. He's really good. He educates while he makes things funny. Now, he's right. Now, small businesses are they are part of capitalism, but what happens is capitalism is such that small businesses, small political parties, they get bullied out of existence by bigger institutions. My country is capitalist socialist. Now, I've done a video before this some time ago about socialism and communism and capitalism, and they all have their strengths and they all have their weaknesses if they go unchecked. In the United States of America, I will give you an example of socialism. Your social security number, social's in it, duh. Your social security number ensures that when you reach a certain age, you get compensated for all the years you worked. That's a socialist program. In fact, it's a part of communism. Communism simply means things in common, hence commune. So communism means that everybody's on the equal playing field when it comes to if they work a certain amount of time and they get a certain amount of social security based on the time they worked. Okay? So that's what Social Security is. And it's a socialist program that was implemented back in, I believe it was the 1930s, somewhere thereabouts. So it's very expensive, but it is how the government compensates people to ensure that people who have worked, they get some sort of thing, because just in case the private companies don't provide a pension to someone after they have finished working, have retired, then Social Security is there to protect that person so that they can exist and actually live. Okay? That's a socialist program, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? I will give you another socialist program, and I'll leave it at that. Another socialist program in the United States of America has to do with the state-run schools. University of California, Riverside, USC, University of San Diego, all of these state-run public schools. The public school system is subsidized quite heavily by the government, the federal government of the United States of America. And another socialist program is where they provide scholarships. The government provides scholarships, or they provide student aid to citizens. Those are all socialist programs. So socialism is not bad. Socialism, as communism, is put in place so that the average person, everybody, can have equity, or they can equally have something to help them with their needs, the needs to things such as education, the needs with respect to things such as being able to exist, having food, being able to at least take care of your health, having shelter. Okay, these are very important things. So you have Canada, which has much more extensive socialist programs, which the government covers and funds, and the government's able to do this from your taxes. So when you pay taxes, the government takes those taxes and puts it into a fund, which, like with Social Security, and when you reach a certain age, you get back a portion of that tax money to sustain you while you can't work anymore. With public education, again, some of your taxes is used by the government to educate the next generation of people and subsidize some of their education. Okay, these are socialist programs. Socialism is not necessarily about profits. Capitalism is based on profits. It's based on capital that you use and you invest into businesses, which would bring about profits and returns, some of which are pumped back into the business to keep it sustaining, and some of which is used to invest in other things, and some of which is used to sustain the people in that business who need to live, because you live off of profit. You don't live off of nothing else. Businesses survive off of profit. If you're not making no profit, you're not doing anything. Okay, that's just you earn through making profit. That's just the way our business works. I am part of the business community. I'm a very small business, and this here is also another business that I'm conducting here. Though it's by donations, it doesn't mean that it's not a business. And so even though it's you would call it a nonprofit organization or nonprofit business, it's still a business, because I am still earning income from it. I'm trading services for it, income, even though it's through donations. But nonetheless, the point is, and some people will say, well, you're soliciting funds. That's illegal. No, it's not illegal, because I'm trading service for funds. I'm not just begging. Begging is soliciting. When you're providing a service, it's not soliciting. However, I am a nonprofit because it doesn't mean that I'll make money off of this. It doesn't mean that I'm actually going to make profit off of this. I'm going to actually earn things. It's based on people if they decide to donate or not. And because I use the word donations, okay. But anyway, keeping it going, it means I haven't specified a specific amount that you have to pay, and you don't have to pay for this service. You get it? So that's where donations, and you will say, well, it's soliciting still. No, I'm providing something. So it's not soliciting. You can't say it's soliciting. I'm actually providing something. I have something in my hand, and now I'm saying you can donate to this. So it's not soliciting. Soliciting is where I'm asking for something and I'm offering nothing. That's soliciting. Do you understand? But if you are when you are saying, if you feel like donating, donate. If you don't feel like donating, don't donate. But I'm doing this and I'm offering you free will to decide if you want to pay for it or not. It's a difference. Okay? I'm being very flexible about it. And I prefer to go that route than say, oh, this is the fee here. Press this button. Blah, 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 blah. That's different. Okay? Okay, anyways, keeping it moving. So businesses are different. No matter what size of business you have, the main thing that keeps you going, that sustains you and sustains the business, is profit. Okay, it's profit, period. You don't make any profit, it's too bad. Your business is not doing anything. So that's capitalism. Now, capitalism and socialism need to always be balanced. The problem with America right now is capitalism is not checked. It's unchecked. There are socialist programs. They're expensive, and socialism is not necessarily to gain profit. You may be making losses by doing these socialist projects, but it's to make sure that your population has the basic needs to sustain it, the foundation, so that it can keep going, so that now you can have people prosper, do well, and even have them, on their platforms, have great capitalistic endeavors and adventures. In China, the government funds and a lot of research into, say, for example, electric vehicles. So they have expanded their industry tremendously. And some of these programs were a great loss to the government, but they sustained those losses to get later on greater benefits and profits from companies, even private companies that started to boom in their production of electric vehicles. So Chinese understand the difference between socialism, communism, and capitalism. They are a combination of the two. They are socialist capitalists. Now, what's the difference between communism and socialism? Socialism is mostly to sustain the social needs of people, the basic needs of people. All right. Communism can go even further. The government can basically own everything, and they separate all profits and margins for everyone. And there's no one leader of anything. There are a lot of consultations. There's a lot of collaborations. That's communism. So communism is the extreme version of socialism. Socialism, it doesn't necessarily have to be, everything is, we have everything in common and we share everything. No, socialism provides space for capitalism. Okay. So communism, if you have a communist state, very rarely does the state not own everything. The state owns almost everything. Okay. And in America, they don't want the federal government to be overseeing and knowing and taking care of everything. This is the problem. So there are people who argue for the capitalism and for capitalists because they want to do a lot of entrepreneurial work, ventures. They want to invest in various facilities and facets, and they don't want government overseeing everything, which, again, I totally agree with as someone who is also a capitalist. But I do believe there needs to be a balance between capitalism and socialism, because socialism literally keeps the moral fabric in the society, also stabilizes the society so that there's a baseline to which people can develop and build off of. So when you look at some of the European countries, they are quite socialist because they have heavy programs that the government subsidizes, whether it's housing, whether it's healthcare, whether it's so they're heavily socialist, but at the same time, they're also capitalists. Okay. And communists as well. They're socialist communists. because there are a lot of things that people, the baseline at least of everything, people have in common. Now, people can progress, they can become wealthy, they can, they can do a lot of other things off of that base. But the important thing is they have this base to stand on. And right now, Germany is really suffering really bad, their economy, because they're mostly where they were producing country. They used to produce a lot of things, and they outstanding in terms of producing things. And right now, their raw materials for such, because of the wars and what's happening, has disrupted a lot of their economy. So their economy went from very strong to very brittle right now. And they have a lot of socialist programs. The government's been bearing a lot of the brunt of the burden. Now, mind you, socialism doesn't have to only be the government that's subsidizing things. The private sector can band together and they can subsidize, and they can also finance through sponsorships programs, for the community. Once the important thing that makes socialism versus capitalism is socialism is important to develop the human resource of your country. So you're punching in money to develop the human resource of your country, the natural resources and human resources of your country. So you pump back in money. You're investing into your people. You don't expect immediate returns. You don't expect immediate profit. The focus is on people. Socialism. That's what socialism is. And communism, to some degree, is like that. But it's more equitable distribution of resources, of capital, etc. And people more collaborate to do joint ventures to move forward, to advance the community, to advance the society. Okay. Whereas capitalism is more about companies and businesses making as much return, as much profit as they possibly can, because the more profit they have, the more sustainable they can be, the more they can exist, the more they can hire people, and then people can feed off that profit, and so on and so on and so on. Okay, so that's capitalism. Out of control capitalism is terrible, because capitalism there's no law in capitalism saying that you have to feed back into society. You have to invest back into the human resource that you used. And that's the problem with capitalism. It doesn't have that check. So socialism has to check it. And this is why, oligarchs and, big business management, they have philanthropy, but the philanthropy doesn't do enough, because their philanthropic interests can be something that literally complements what their businesses do. So it doesn't really help. It only helps to build more monopoly with their businesses, and that's not cool, or world domination. And we're just not into that. So that's the problem with capitalism. Capitalism unchecked. The problem with capitalism also, I would say this. Okay, so this is the thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about. And I think it's just a very interesting topic that a lot of you should really, continue the conversation with. Capitalism does not have within it any contingency to push to plug back into society. However, it doesn't mean that there's only one way to have these companies, these big companies particularly, and these oligarchs pay back into society. Now, most of the time, everyone agrees we should tax the people who make more income, right? You should tax big companies and so on. I am saying that I think if the companies take the initiative upon themselves to plug back into the society like the government would, through programs that either the government outlines that they help out in, or by themselves taking up the initiative, and in the local communities in which they are in, or the local countries they are in, having major events where they literally sponsor to increase or to improve the human resources of the country, and therefore increase their brand and therefore increase their advertising. Because these companies do not have, you want to have some sort of incentive for these companies by giving them tax breaks. And they worked hard to get themselves into that position. And for you to change the law upon them like that, kind of like what you're doing, So since we're kind of past that point of return, then how can they give back? Because the whole point behind taxation is to give back to the population, which carries the bulk of the load. These companies do not carry the bulk of the load. So how can we give back to them? And one of the ways is these companies sponsoring major events to the tune of improving the human resource. Now, some of these companies would draft in some of these people. And again, game shows and all these things, companies generally donate into game shows and stuff like that. But again, it's pittance compared to what they actually make. So, you want to have not just game shows. You don't want them just sponsoring game shows, and you want them to literally be involved in developing the human resources of countries. And you should start off with, for example, the younger people, the younger generation, but you should have something also for the older generations. And remembering that the government will need help in the basic needs. So maybe these companies could invest in research. These companies could invest in healthcare. These companies could invest in housing, right? Cheap, affordable housing. By bearing some of the government's burden. They're not looking these investments back into the human resource will not give immediate returns or profit to these companies, but will put them in a much better position later on because of the fact that their brand is behind these efforts and endeavors. And yes, you will say, well, these companies are going against what got them where they are in a capitalist society. They're about maximum profit. Well, you have to temper that with injecting or investing back into your not just into the company, but also into the society, into the human resource of your society, wherever you are, whether it's China, whether it's Russia, whether it's America, whether it's the Caribbean. You have to inject back something back. And what's the best way then to sponsor major sporting events, sponsor major brain pool drives, competitions, sponsor major development and research and developmental institutions, which cause human resource to improve. And of course, pump money back into housing, investing in cheap, affordable housing for people to get, pumping back into healthcare, all the basic needs that human beings need to live, even helping the government out sometimes with things like pensions, finding yourself pumping back some of the material back into society. Help the government because you took some of that money, you took some of that purchasing money from the public. At least a percentage of that you need to give back to the public. You know what I'm saying? You need to re-inject it. And that re-injection only helps the economy get bigger. So you got bigger purchasing power so people can invest more into your businesses. Your name gets stronger worldwide and globally by you injecting back into different districts. Countries seem to see and trust your brand even more because you're constantly involved in different cultures and different countries. You're going to get bigger, stronger, just bigger and stronger. And of course, the company is almost guaranteed to be sustainable for a very long time because the brand is a trusted brand. The whole point behind it is branding and making people trust in your brand because you're directly involved in their lives in a very positive way. And they see the returns on that and they trust your brand because of that. I remember in my country, there was something called CLICO. I invested in insurance, annuities, and man, I'm not going to tell you nothing. I mean, the country, there was a big scandal that happened with CLICO and stuff like that, where they couldn't pay out certain things, and now they're not that heavy and prominent in insurance anymore. But I'm going to tell you this, man, I had nothing but a positive experience with that brand. Nothing but a positive, and they're huge. They're all over the world. They're involved in all kinds of bonds and shares. I had nothing but a positive experience with that brand, and I will tell you something. When you have a brand that stirs people up like that, I'm telling you, man, you go places, you expand, you get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. You can't stop growing because that's when capitalism is at its peak. Capitalism thrives. I remember capitalism thrives. Let me finish the thought. When socialism and capitalism are one. And that's why the Chinese the economy grew so rapidly over those years. It's because they twained the two together in a perfect balance. It's not that people in China now don't have freedom of speech. They do now, more than ever. Before they were taking, precautions, heavy precautions, because they were trying to develop at a sensitive stage of development in their country. Now, you can go to China and you can have different views on different things, and they may even involve you in more discussions because it's so collaborative and there's so many different ideas that the Chinese would love to, and I know because the Chinese are in my country and they ask me questions about my business that I conduct, and they're very curious about it, and that stimulates conversation. And the more conversation you have is the more ideas you get, and now it's just to execute and implement those ideas. And if you have the tools and resources to do that, like the Chinese do, then go for it. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said before, socialism and communism are not bad things. So when somebody says, "Oh, he's a commie," and this, then you're backward. You're behind the world. The world's going forward at 100 miles an hour, and you're just there. You put it in reverse gear, and you're going backwards. You know what I'm saying? So you need to understand these things. Socialism is not a bad thing. Communism is not a bad thing. They're just different ways of running economies and politics. Now, what makes these things corrupt is the oligarchs, the people who want to consolidate power, want to manipulate people, like religion, which is a beautiful thing for us to understand our humanity by. But staunch, brainwashed religion, the opiate of the masses, is what causes people to be divided and to separate each other from each other. When in truth, religion is just a way of life, and it's just a way how you conduct your life. That's all it is. All right. And some of it is very good, and some of it's just not necessary, And so, what I'm trying to say to people, whatever your persuasion, whatever your political affiliation, whatever your taste in how you want to conduct your life, some of you are not going to be business people. You're just not going to, you don't have that mindset. You don't have that. You will work for someone. Okay. Nothing's wrong with that. And some of you will step out into the unknown, and you will continue to chart a path, success or failure. You will go on your own way, do your own thing. There are different people. Some people, they're conformists, but yet at the same time, they're not really someone who likes to work under people where they feel restricted. Okay, I am such a person. Other people, they can work under people. For me, I love going on that. I love charting courses which have not been charted before. I like to go where no one has gone before. I like to do things where nobody has done before. That's what gets me. I really get a big, I get excited over things like that. Okay, but not everybody's like that. Some people like the tried true path. Some people like to do things that have been, well tested out. They like security in their lives. So everybody's different taste. They have the different things that they'll do. Okay, so anyway, I like what Rathbone said, that basically most of you guys don't even know what capitalism is, because most of you go to jobs. You're in jobs. So you don't know anything about capitalism. You live in a socialist world where somebody pays you a fixed amount of money to sustain you. And that's socialism. Your needs are taken care of. Capitalism, your needs are taken care of by profits. And you have to be an owner. You have to be a business owner to understand that and to be part of a capitalistic society. There's no other way. You have to be an entrepreneur, a small businessman, self-employed, sole proprietor, or a business owner or shareholder, or have shares in a company, or investing in shares somewhere. That's how you become part of capitalism. And even if you invest in shares, that's not enough. You have to because investing in certain shares or investing in certain currencies, that's not really capitalism. Capitalism is profits. You have to be dealing with profits. If you're not dealing with profits, I'm not talking about working for someone. You have a company and it's making profit somewhere. You're not part of the capitalistic society. That's just what it is. You have to be doing something that gives you returns, and the returns are in profit. That is to say, you started off with some basic materials, and now you are making profit off of that. That's capitalism, because you have to have capital. And if you don't have capital, that means you don't own the business, which means you didn't have something to start it up. You either have to be a joint owner of a business to be part of capitalism. If you're not a joint owner of anything, if you're not a business owner, you are not part of capitalism. You are part of socialism. Because the companies, the business, I don't care if you're in the private sector or not, the companies are sustaining you with a fixed wage. You get a fixed amount. Everybody in that company gets a fixed amount based on the level they're at. That's socialism. Anyways, that's what I got for you. You're being mined by someone. Someone is taking care of you. Let's just put it that way, for your services. All right, man. I've said enough. I am Christ, I am disciple. I hope you guys have a blessed and prosperous day. I'm going out to do some work. I'll see you guys later. God be with you. This is the end of the month of November. Today's the last day. I do want to go sing and perform maybe in the mall, but I don't think that'll be possible. Maybe I'll get to do a karaoke or something live somewhere, but I really do feel like singing. I have an original song I want to sing. I'll catch you guys later, man. God bless you all. Peace.